Hello, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Walton. I'm editor-in-chief of Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers. Welcome to our video forum. We're pleased today to have as our guest Steve Mister, President and CEO of the Council for Responsible Nutrition. Welcome, Steve.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
CRN regularly tracks consumer attitudes and usage patterns for nutritional supplements. Maybe you can talk a little bit about where those indicators were prior to COVID and how they've changed as a result of the pandemic.
Sure. We've been doing our consumer survey now for over 20 years. So we have a pretty good benchmark of not only consumer behavior, but also their attitudes towards the category. And this year, because of the dramatic changes in sales that we saw with the pandemic, we actually did two surveys, one that was specific to consumer behavior around the pandemic, and then one was our annual survey that we benchmark across time. And what we found was that supplement usage was pretty steady among the number of people who were using supplements. We saw a slight dip from last year, just in terms of the percentage of consumers who said that they were using supplements. But what we did see, though, was among those who were still using them, and we're still talking about approximately 3/4 of Americans say that they use at least one dietary supplement. But among those users, we saw a lot of them really doubling down on using their products. So we asked consumers if they had changed their regimen as a result of the pandemic. And just under half of them said that they had changed their regimen. And 9 out of 10 of those consumers said that they had increased their supplement usage, either by adding more supplements to their regimen or becoming more faithful in taking them on a daily basis, or in some cases, increasing the dosages for things like vitamin C and vitamin D. They might be taking more of it than they used to take. So, I think you saw on the one hand, in terms of just the sheer number of consumers, the category didn't grow that much, but in terms of sales, as we've all seen a lot of the sales data, it has increased dramatically, and that's because users have really, focused in to take more products. We're seeing increases on things like multivitamins, vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, elderberry, probiotics. Particularly those ingredients that have claims around immune function and building immune support generally. Mm-hmm. We did see some dips early on in things like sports nutrition, but that's understandable given their kind of niche markets. So many consumers were not able to get to the gym, get to their Pilates class or their yoga or their spin classes. And so those kinds of supplements that were typically used in a congregate setting, your pre-workouts, your post-workouts, on your way to the gym, we saw a dip in that for a while, but even that is starting to come back.
You do hear retailers talk a lot about the immunity category and how that's really taken off these days.
It helps that there's a lot of research these days looking at the relationship between things like vitamin D and zinc and magnesium for immune function. You had, when the president was in the hospital, the cocktail of things that he was on included not only a number of medicines, but also vitamin D and zinc and melatonin. So, when consumers hear about that, that piques their curiosity and interest, and it also drives sales.
Looking ahead, and I know this is difficult to predict, but once we get beyond COVID, do you think this experience will have a lasting effect on how people view the supplement business, or category, I should say?
Absolutely. Like so many consumer products, we saw the initial spikes in the March-April timeframe. A lot of that was attributable to pantry loading. But what we've seen in the industry is, even as that curve came back down, it did not go back down to previous levels. It has stayed at a higher level. And so, sales for the year are going to be higher than we had projected at this time last year. What we can see from the consumer attitudes from our survey is that consumers are becoming more focused on how they can be active in their self-care, how they can try to stay healthy. And I think those kind of attitude changes are going to go well beyond when the vaccine arrives. It's it's accelerated something that we had seen anyway, which was consumers being more interested in taking charge of their self-care. I think this is here to stay now. And that even once we have a vaccine, we're going to continue to see that driving increased sales.
Mm-hmm. The American Medical Association recently came out with a statement calling for greater regulations of the nutritional supplement category. How does your group view the current regulatory framework?
Well, we believe that the current framework, for the most part, is very effective at balancing between consumer access and assuring that consumers can find the products that they want, and at the same time protecting public health and safety. Now, there are some things that we'd like to see, and some of these are things that we actually agree with the AMA on. So, for instance, one of the things that they've called for is mandatory product listing. And that's a policy initiative we have been supporting for a couple of years now, and are working at Congress to get that enacted. That, of course, would allow FDA to set up almost like a registry of products that when you bring a new dietary supplement into the market, you would file a copy of your label with the FDA and notify them that you have gone to market. It wouldn't be a barrier to entry, so FDA wouldn't be able to treat it like pre-market approval. They wouldn't be able to hold up your launch of your product, but it would just be something that you do as you pass go and collect $200. You would file your label, and then FDA would know what products are in the market. As I said, we've supported this because we understand that for FDA to really be effective regulators for dietary supplements, they have to be able to see into the industry. They can't regulate what they can't see. And so a mandatory product registry would allow them to know what's in the marketplace. So that's one of the areas that we agree with the AMA. They call for more label literacy in their statement. And of course, that's something that we also have been working on for a couple of years now. We launched our Be Label Wise campaign about a year ago to coincide with the new supplement facts labels that FDA was requiring the industry to roll out. And we think, consumers always can learn more about the label, looking at the ingredients, reading the dosages, understanding any cautionary statements that are there. So we have a lot more in common with the AMA than you might think.
Where do you disagree with the AMA? What are the points of difference?
Well, one of the things that the AMA called for was an end to proprietary blends. And I think it may be that they simply don't understand why that provision is in the law, and also don't understand the limitations of it. So there was a suggestion that you don't have to list the ingredient if it's in a proprietary blend. And that's simply a misreading of the statute. Even within proprietary blends, our manufacturers have to identify all of the ingredients. They just don't have to identify the amounts of each one. They identify the total content of the blend. And the AMA calls for more incentives for innovation in the supplement industry. And in fact, that's one of the few areas where there is protection for innovation right now. The proprietary blend provision allows companies to keep that secret so that competitors cannot just simply replicate their formulas and knock off their brands. So it was kind of surprising to us that on the one hand, they say we need more incentives for innovation, but they were advocating taking away one that we already have.
Mm-hmm. When you say you are working with Congress to get some of the changes that CRN supports through, what do the prospects look like?
Actually, we're very optimistic about the coming Congress as we look forward to this. The leadership of the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House is not changing. The House did not change party control, and Congressman Pallone will continue to be the chairman of that committee, which is where all of the action is for FDA-related issues. So we've been working very closely, not only with the chairman's office, but with all of the members of the Energy and Commerce Committee. And we're optimistic that we're going to be able to get some action in the next Congress.
You guys recently launched an initiative to help retailers better understand probiotics. Could you tell me a little bit about what's involved with that?
So yeah, that's something we're also very excited about as we go into the new year. We've been hearing from a number of our members who market probiotic products that they get recurring questions from the retail buyers for the major chains that they don't understand why probiotics are unique and why are there special requirements for them. So this is an initiative to help educate the retailers as to why they have to pay particular attention to how they curate that part of the supplement aisle. And it starts with the fact that, of course, that probiotics are living organisms. Unlike your magnesium or your B12, these are living organisms in the bottle. And so they need to, first of all, be kept viable for their entire shelf life. They need to be labeled differently. Typically, we label dietary supplements by weight, but telling consumers that your probiotics capsule is 50 milligrams doesn't really tell them how many living organisms are in that capsule. And that's really what they want to know. And they want to know that those organisms are going to stay alive on the shelf through the expiration date. So these are things that I think retailers need to understand so that they can ask their vendors the right questions. They need to understand that not all probiotics are the same. Probiotics is an entire category of products, and different strains and different species have different health benefits. So one probiotic is not simply a substitute for another. It's important that those products be labeled down to the strain, and then pharmacists and other people in the stores who interface with consumers need to understand those differences so that they can talk to their consumers about what are the probiotic products that are best going to address the health concerns that a particular consumer might have.
As you were indicating, as you described probiotics, the whole supplement category is large and complex. What can you guys do, your organization do, to help retailers help their customers understand what the options are and what's best for them?
Sure. Well, of course, we always remind consumers to talk to their healthcare providers first. And that's very important advice for retailers to use with customers as well. Talk to your healthcare provider before starting your new supplement regimen. If you're on prescription drugs, make sure you talk to your healthcare provider about whether there might be interactions between the supplements and the drugs and those kinds of things. But I think then the second thing that so many retailers are concerned about is the quality of the products on the shelf. And we're seeing retailers starting to develop their own individual programs to assure that the products that they put in their supplement aisle have been through a certain protocol of quality, making sure that the facilities are GMP inspected and that they meet those requirements, that the products carry what they have, what they say on the label is what's in the bottle. So all of those things are helpful. What we want to be sure is that retailers don't use these competing certification programs as a point of distinction for the retailer. Our position is that quality should be the price of entry into the supplement market space. It should not be the point of distinction between one store versus another. With this one has quality products, this one doesn't. All of those products should meet certain levels of quality across all retailers. And what that means is that we ought to be developing uniform standards for what is GMP compliance, what is the way that we determine that products have what they say they have in the bottle. And those should be uniform across the industry. If we don't do that, what we're allowing is retailers to create separate programs that now add cost into the system. Because my program might be slightly tweaked from my competitors. And so as a brand marketer, I've got to do each one of those programs separately in order to be in all 5 stores. And so hopefully we are reminding retailers to look for a uniform common standard that all of them can use to certify once and for all that they have a quality product on shelf.
And how close are you to convincing the industry that they should adopt that position?
We've got some really positive steps. One of them is something called the Global Retailers and Manufacturers Alliance, the GRMA. They have developed standards already for the GMP audits. Their standard is recognized by ANSI, so it has accreditation. and they have certifying bodies that can all measure to those standards. So, I'm encouraged that is at least taking us in the right direction, and that retailers will see the value of that and adopt it.
You guys have your online wellness library, the CRN online wellness library. Explain what that is and the function it serves. And I know you've also recently introduced some improvements to the program.
That's right, Jeff. It's the supplement AL, is the acronym, OWL. And this is similar to what we talked about earlier with the mandatory product listing, but this is something the industry has done on a voluntary basis already. When companies bring products to market, they're asked to put their labels into the supplement AL and to fill out I think it's about 18 fields of information about the product. All of the information that's there is information that would be publicly available from their label anyway. But by putting it into this spreadsheet, it allows the users of the registry to search by particular terms. So they can search by ingredient, by brand, by company name, by the conditions that they're looking to address. And what this does, again, is it allows both regulators and retailers to be able to see into the breadth of the supplement industry. By using the registry, they can look for particular products, they can identify ingredients. If FDA has a concern about the safety of an ingredient, they can immediately go in and tell which marketers are using that ingredient in their product. In addition to, we think, being a really important transparency tool for the industry, just as on a voluntary basis, as we're looking again back to Congress and potentially having a mandatory product listing that's overseen by FDA, we think the supplement AL is also a great template of what that could look like. And of course, it's a lot easier to go and ask Congress to create something if you already know what it should look like. And so I think the supplement AL is serving that purpose too. It's showing us what a mandatory product listing could look like. The only difference would be it would be run by the FDA as opposed to being run by the industry.
And what are the new enhancements that you've added recently?
Yeah, so we've been listening to our users as they have identified things that would make it easier to put products in. So we now have a bulk upload. It's completely automated now. So you can, if you want to do it on your computer and put in your products at 11 o'clock at night, a quality representative can sit down and put them in and completely upload them on their own. You can put in a lot of products at once. If you have similar products that might have, say different flavors or something like that, there's a cloning function so that you can replicate that entry and then just go in and change those things that are different from one product to the next without having to go back and re-enter all of those products from scratch.
And how widely used is the OWL at this stage?
Well, so we have about 10,000 products in the OWL, and we're looking to grow that. In fact, we're going to be launching an industry-directed promotion around the supplement OWL in the first of the year to really drive more companies to put their products in. We're also seeing fairly good traffic from the user standpoint in the way of whether it's regulators or retailers or consumers going to the registry to use it. And we're hoping to drive more traffic to that. Up until now, we really have not done any marketing of the registry to the consumer. It really has been focused on being a regulator's tool and a retailer's tool. In the future, we're going to start promoting it to consumers as well, so that it becomes a consumer tool.
Final question for you, Steve. Innovation is critical to any CPG category. What are the sources of innovation in the supplements business that we should look for in the next 5 years?
Sure. Well, I think while innovation is important to all consumer products, it has always been what has driven growth in the supplement industry. I mean, there has always been this interest among consumers for what's new, what's the next best thing that's coming. And so we've been particularly careful to watch innovation. We're seeing innovation now in terms of new ingredients, things like new delivery forms, The days where everything was either in a pill or a capsule are gone.
Mhm.
We still have those delivery forms, but we have powders and liquids and concentrates and dissolvables and gummies and chewables. So all of that is driving consumer interest because we're meeting consumers where they want to be and giving them the kind of delivery forms they want. From a more of a regulatory standpoint, we have urged the FDA to adopt something called a master file system for supplements, which would protect the innovation of companies that come up with new ingredients or new forms of ingredients. So I'm very optimistic that the industry is just going to keep on innovating and growing, and we're going to continue to see new products. CBD, of course, is another potential ingredient for the industry. I think it probably was a little overhyped a year ago when people were first taking notice of it, but nevertheless, there is still a need to get a regulatory pathway forward for CBD, and I think once we do, there still is a lot of consumer demand, and we're going to see a lot of interest because I think we're just scratching the surface of some of the health benefits of CBD and some of the other cannabinoids that are in hemp. So yeah, I'm very buoyant about the future innovation.
Okay, well, it'll be interesting to watch. I appreciate your time today, Steve. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.